Thank you, Katie. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Muna, and I'm the Best Starts for Kids Childcare Workforce Manager, and I use she, her pronouns. Thank you all for joining today. Today we'll be discussing the Childcare Workforce Demonstration Pilot, RFP, or as we informally call it, the Wage Boost Project RFP. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the team I am a part of. So it goes Katie, Steph, Jessica for me. Katie, do you want to go first?
Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Katie Kaiser. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm one of the two program managers running the childcare subsidy, part of the childcare strategy.
And hi everyone, my name is Stephanie, and the sun is just bathing on me today, so bear with me. But yes, she, her pronouns, and I'm the other childcare subsidy program manager.
And hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Tolonar Cafferty. Really grateful for that sunshine pouring in, and I'm the childcare policy lead.
Thank you all. So Jessica, our team leader, will be sharing some Best Starts for Kids history. Jessica, you want to take it off?
Yeah, thank you, Muna. So I'm just going to share today a little bit of an overview of Best Starts as a whole, and then how we got to where we are now, and then I'll pass it back to Muna to share specifics for this body of work. So I like to start every conversation about Best Starts grounding us in our philosophy and our commitment, which is really happy, healthy, safe, and thriving. And what that means is that we want these things for kids, families, and adults in our community. We want to see babies born healthy, kiddos thrive, and young people have all of the opportunities and supports they need to grow up to be happy, healthy, and successful adults. Next slide, please. Our childcare work is informed by a lot of conversation, deep conversation and listening with community, and in particular with families and childcare providers. The three reports here are sort of guiding documents that we are using. There's links in all of these, so if you get the slides, you should be able to click through if you're interested in learning more. What I'll share at a high level is back in 2018, the Women's Advisory Board identified childcare as a real need for families in King County. They issued some recommendations to the county, and they were really around access and affordability. So really focused on, can families find care that meets their needs, and can families afford it, and how do we make sure that those things are true? In response, council and the executive convened a task force of really incredible folks ranging from childcare providers, home visitors, parents, to former electeds and systems leaders to come together and look at access and affordability. And that task force actually said, we need to look at more holistically the system of care. We can't just look at access and affordability. We have to look at the whole ecosystem of workforce, of equity, of what this looks like to build a thriving system. And so they really went deep and made a series of 20 recommendations to the county that we'll dive into a little bit more. That's that first report that's listed here, Equitable and Accessible Childcare in King County. And those recommendations are really what inform the vast majority of the Best Starts work around childcare. Next slide, please. So again, that report includes 20 recommendations, more than we will go into today, but I did want to highlight just a couple of the key things that really led to the two childcare investments that you see as part of BSK 2.0. The very cool thing about that task force was they looked at a range of different types of recommendations, ranging from really sort of long-term foundational principles, so things that might not make an immediate change, but are critical to the long-term vision for a thriving and equitable ecosystem of care. Those include things like anti-racist principles, guidance for how the county both raises and uses revenue related to childcare, and accountability structures moving forward in investing in childcare. They also developed recommendations that are more sort of tactical, so programmatic and systemic policy needs the county could play a real role in advancing. Couple of the key ones there that resulted directly in the investments that you're hearing about were a recommendation to support equitable wages and benefits for workers, and one around making sure that families have access to financial supports for affording childcare. I also included on this slide a recognition that we know the workforce in King County of childcare is more diverse than our general population. We know that childcare providers in King County are predominantly women of color who are bringing incredible expertise and experience to this work. And so a recognition that we also really want to be building comprehensive supports for that specific community of providers, as well as for men in the early learning and childcare field. Next slide, please. I also want to highlight just a couple of current King County investments in childcare. We know that none of these investments will solve the crisis that we're currently experiencing in the sector. And so we're hoping that as we sort of build together different investments, we are building a growing portfolio of work that supports the whole field and the people who are in it and who need to access it. So three current investments I just wanted to share in our Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services Levy. We have a student veterans pilot that is very cool in partnership with Child Care Resources. That program provides both deep subsidy for families as well as scaled supports for families who might not need as deep of support but need some assistance to access care. One of the things that's really exciting about that is that it's supporting both licensed and informal care, so family, friend, and neighbor caregivers. That is an area that has been more difficult for the county to figure out how to do well. It's something that we're really committed to learning more about and making sure that we do effectively. And so we're looking forward to the learnings that they have from that project. The second is our Puget Sound Taxpayer Accountability Account, or we call it PASTA, which sounds way more delicious, our Early Learning Facilities Fund. This is a fund that is accessible both to family childcare providers and center-based providers in two different funding opportunities. And it's really around how we can support preservation, improvement, and expansion of early learning facilities. So really focus on making sure that we have the physical spaces that kiddos need and that providers need to have. And the last funding area that I wanted to highlight was our emergency work through COVID. We've now run 3 COVID emergency childcare investments. Our current investment is managed by our amazing Steph Ospina-Velez. And those projects have provided really a range of supports. So everything from subsidies for families to access the care of their choice, grants directly to providers, as well as guaranteed slots for essential workers early on in the pandemic when we were having trouble sort of preserving those slots. Along with some informal caregiver support, so grants made to FFN caregivers as well. Next slide, please. And then I'm going to pass it back over to Muna.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you for all that information. So today we're going to discuss the Best Starts for Kids renewal related to childcare. So the Best Starts for Kids levy approved in 2021, and this gave our team the opportunity to work on 2 new childcare investments: the Childcare Workforce Demonstration Pilot, or Wage Boost Project, as we informally like to call it, and the Childcare Subsidy Program. So Katie and Steph are co-leading a childcare subsidy program that will support families just above the Working Connection childcare program's income and eligibility and fill gaps in eligibility, prioritize family experiencing additional barriers to accessing childcare, and partner with key community members to understand regional needs and ensure alignment and equity. Thank you for that. The project we'll be discussing today is the Childcare Workforce Demonstration Pilot, RFP. This pilot will explore impact of wage increase on worker retention and program quality, fund wage enhancement for approximately 1,400 providers, and fund licensed providers eligible for the program for the duration of employment or length of the levy. Just a reminder, the RFP release date has been moved to May 31st, 2022, and more information is coming in May of 2022. So priorities for the Workforce Demonstration Pilot, again, we like to call it the Wage Boost Pilot project, are to provide salary supplement to childcare providers working with children ages birth through 12, prioritize workers in areas with limited childcare access or serving low-income families, support generally accepted best practice laborers, and understand impact of wage boost on retention and continuity, I can't say that word, of care, the planned population Populations eligible for the wage boost include childcare providers and workers employed by licensed childcare centers and childcare providers and workers in licensed family home childcares. In late 2021 and early 2022, a work group joined our team to discuss the Wage Boost pilot project. The themes we heard were that all childcare providers deserve thriving wages. This project should be accessible, supportive, and responsive to childcare providers. This project should distribute funds in a way that best meets the provider's needs. And this programming has a potential to impact long-term change in the childcare field. When speaking to the Workforce Demonstration Pilot RFP, the Wage Boost project, the administrator will regularly convene, seek feedback, and incorporate needs and desires of childcare providers. The administrator will create a system for ongoing engagement with the childcare community. The RFP won't be for individual childcare providers to apply. It's more for an organization who will design and administer the Wage Boost project with regular meetings with childcare providers in King County. The administrator will use the input of the childcare providers to design and administer a Wage Boost project for 3 years, but should be prepared for the contract to be extended to the length of the levy until 2027. And they'll work to collect data and partner with King County and community partners. So we asked the work group, what should BSK value in administrator? What we heard is we are looking for an administrator. What we heard is what we're looking for an administrator for the Wage Boost project. They have a history advocating for the childcare community with integrity. They understand the project's primary focus is childcare providers in King County and the children and families they serve. They have community connection, so they need an established feedback loop to stay connected to the childcare community. They provide linguistically appropriate services and translated documentation, and they focus on holistic values of strengthening pathways and impact for Black, Indigenous, people of color, community leadership. So in 2022, the anticipated funding will be approximately $500,000, and it will be for engaging childcare providers and the creation of the Workforce Demonstration Pilot Project. For 2023, until the levy ends in 2027, the Workforce Demonstration Pilot Project, or Wage Boost, as you might hear it be called, will have an annual anticipated funding of $5 million. Just a reminder, again, that we have pushed the release date for the RFP to May 31st, 2022. In Q3 of 2022, we'll select contractors. Q4 of 2022, we'll design the Wage Boost project and engage with childcare providers. And in Q1 of 2023, we anticipate to launch the Wage Boost pilot project. And that flew by. So I wanted to open the floor to questions. Thank you all for joining us today. We would love to hear from you and ask any questions you can, just because we'll be using these questions for our RFP. So ask away. Any questions?
Could you show that last slide one more time?
Yes,
With the dates?
definitely. Do you have any questions about this slide?
No.
Okay.
I had a
There.
quick question about this slide, the Q4 2022. Could you speak more about, I guess, what you're expecting to be accomplished? And just looking at it on slide form, it just sounds like it's very ambitious, real quick timeline and I'm just sort of thinking through those pieces about, wanting to make sure you're really engaging and taking the time to engage with childcare providers and get that feedback to help inform the design of the project. So I was wondering if you could speak a little more to that and to that timeline.
Yeah, thank you, Enrica. I think that because in the beginning of 2020 or end of 2021, beginning of 2022, we were able to form that work group that has helped us not only with the wage boost project, the subsidy project. We've started creating that community feedback, that childcare feedback. But honestly, if we're being honest, we're still in the process of designing this and figuring this out. Jessica, do you want to talk a little bit more about this?
Sorry, I'm 2 years in and still can't figure out my unmute button. Yeah, Enrica, that's such a great insight. And I think Muna is exactly right. So we are not starting from scratch. We do have quite a bit of feedback from our work group and from the Children and Family Strategy Task Force. We also did a couple of listening sessions with providers in partnership with SEIU 925. I think one of the things about this project that we feel really strongly about is that we want continuous feedback of childcare providers in the design of the project and in continuing to sort of calibrate it. We know that this is a pilot. We know we'll learn things along the way, and we don't want it to be sort of a one-time thing. We want an ongoing process with providers. And so initially, we actually had a plan for the wage boost to begin being administered by the end of the year. We're thinking now that it makes sense to give ourselves the rest of the year in partnership with the contractors to really finalize design and then to begin in the start of 2023.
Okay, thank you for that feedback.
Thank you.
A question. It seems like this will be decided through 2022, but I'm curious how you will decide which childcare providers receive the funds. Is it gonna, because my wonderings is just if, will this be sent out to childcare providers? And I'm curious if childcare providers will not have awareness or access to this information, they might miss out on the opportunity for the funds. So I'm just kind of curious what you guys think of that.
That's really helpful. So we are trying our best to make this open to all providers and workers in family home child cares and licensed centers, so licensed FCCs and licensed centers. And it's nice to hear the importance of making sure that we equitably, that's what we're thinking about, we equitably reach out to child care providers and reach out to our community partners to make sure the information is shared out. Jessica, is there anything else that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I will share, Jenna, that is an area that the work group did quite a bit of initial thinking. What I think was clear was that we would do a couple of things. The recommendation is that at least at a minimum, if a site is chosen, all of the workers at that site will be chosen. So we're at least not experiencing, sort of one staff member and not others. There is sort of a set of priority populations that is consistent with Best Starts and King County's commitment to equity, and in particular, racial equity. We know that we'll want a selection of family childcare homes as well as centers represented, as well as geographic representation across the county. And so there is a set of sort of priorities there. The recommendation by the work group then was also to potentially have a lottery within those who fell into those categories, knowing that we will not have enough funding to reach all of the workers in King County. And so I think there are still certain details to be worked out, and those will probably be clearer by the time we release the RFP. But at a minimum, what I think we do know is that we want to prioritize some of those groups that have been identified as sort of furthest from opportunity, furthest from access, and that we want to make sure that we have good representation across the county.
I have just a follow-up question. So how do you see the wage increase for childcare providers to occur? So is there going to be a like a stepping scale or, something where I'm just curious around how do we ensure equity across all childcare providers when it comes to deciding how much increase they will receive? Does that make sense?
We're still currently in the design process of the project. It's still being discussed and talked about, and we're taking as much feedback as we can that we received from the work group. I think that's something that we are thinking about. So it's really helpful, but as of right now, we're still in the design process.
Thank you.
Can you speak more on small organizations mean? Because I think this question came up a couple of times, but we never got an answer for that.
I remember you asked that, Nima.
Hey, Mona.
Nice, very good. Jessica, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, Nemo, are you talking about specifically small childcare providers? Or are you talking about community-based organizations?
Community-based organizations.
Yeah, I think so. Best Starts has a commitment to ensuring that we're ideally partnering with community to remove barriers to access for government funding. And so what we really want to say is that if there are community partners who think they can do this work, but might need support in order to do that, whether that's technical assistance or capacity building, that we don't want those things that sort of historically have been barriers to applying for funds to prevent community-based organizations that have really strong experience and relationship in community from applying to the work. So, we could see a range of different outcomes for a project like this. It could certainly be just one contractor, but we could also see partnerships. We're also considering, either doing an RFP or an RFQ, where we could sort of look at the different qualifications of folks in community who might be able to do some or all of this work. And so really wanting to make sure that that we aren't only funding mainstream organizations through Best Starts, but that we're really working in partnership with community to remove some of those barriers. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. So are you guys planning on having like a TA type of work around this, where a nonprofit might not be able to do a whole administrating the wage boost for providers, but they can do other work around outreach to the provider community and such?
Yes.
Muna, you want me to answer that, or you got it?
Yes. We're in hopes of having multiple, if we can, administrators. And if there's one organization like you just talked about, Nicole, that can connect us to the community, not connect us, sorry, that is integrated within the community that would like to do that community work, and then have a different organization work on the TA and work on the admin side of it. That is a wonderful hope that we have.
Yeah, so, and I think I would just add to that. So we don't see multiple folks actually administering funds, but we might see a partnership of organizations working together to administer the project. The community will not be administering the funds directly. So we do need to administer through a contracted agency. Be really important. So that's not an area that we would be able to provide technical assistance. We can provide TA through the application process, and there will be in the RFP information about how to access those resources. Best Starts also does have capacity building support in a number of key areas. So organizations that are awarded funds that need support, sort of building their capacity in one or more areas, can access that support as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And anybody else? Would you like to ask a question? And thank you for your patience as we are still in the design process, but your questions are extremely helpful to us. Well, I will share again our email if it comes up. And here below is our email. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. And also feel free to email Jessica. I'm gonna put it out there, but if you can, oh, no, you have your hand up.
So I have a question. You said once the facility is selected, then you guys would work with all of their employees. And because some centers might have over 500 employees, or even, I don't know how that would work, or help family childcare providers where, if you select multiple sites of centers, and the amount of people or individuals that can be served is only 1,400, you said, a year?
Approximately. So we are.
Yeah. Okay. So how would that even work? Is there a maximum of staff, or is there a way to say, well, you have too many employees? I don't know. What would that look like?
I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. So we're still in the design process of our own, where these are questions that we've been thinking about. The work group met with our team before I was on the team. So Jessica, if you want to speak to that, if they had a conversation about that.
Yeah, Nemo, thank you for your continuous input in this process too. You've been involved in so many of these conversations. I think, again, we're still figuring out the details there. This is helpful feedback and continues to be. And I think we'll have to find the balance of how we can sort of equitably support family childcare homes who might have only 1 or 2 staff members versus larger centers. There's lots of different questions we'll need to weigh there. And hopefully by the time we release the RFP or RFQ, we'll have more specific information there. Some of it may also happen after awarding our partner in partnership with childcare providers and the county and that contracted agency to design the program fully.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nemo. Are there any questions that we can answer? Give it a second for people to think.
This isn't a question. I just wanted to thank you guys for spearheading this project. It's very much needed, and I'm just excited to see how it evolves.
Thank you, Jenna. I'm excited to be here. Well, if there are no more questions, I'll give it a moment. Then if you have any more follow-up questions or you think later on I'd like to ask something, feel free to send me an email. My email is mformary, HOUSSEN for Nancy at kingcounty.gov, and feel free to reach out to our team leader, Jessica, as well. And her email is jecafferty@kingcounty.gov. And I'm excited for you all to join us. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you for being here. Happy Wednesday.